Welcome to the News El Salvador SV podcast. This is a space for conversation and reflection where we explore current topics from El Salvador and the world together. Find US on your favorite platform. Look for us as News El Salvador SV. You can make contributions via PayPal link in the content description, and you can visit our online store where you'll find paid content that might be useful for you. Check the links you'll find in the content description. There you'll also find more ways to collaborate if you wish. And you'll also find exclusive episodes. Explore the links in the description. Remember to follow, share, and comment.
Thank you so much. Today, we're opening a really dense stack of material. It covers everything from high-stakes international diplomacy. You've got the United States, Russia. Then there's the political fallout from this incredible ultimatum in Venezuela. And we're going to bring it all the way down to the financial pulse of El Salvador.
Right, and that means looking at the national debt, which is a huge topic, and of course the technicals on Bitcoin, which are, well, as volatile as ever. It really feels like a moment defined by pressure, doesn't it? Yeah. We're seeing global powers kind of projecting their influence in very unilateral ways.
We are. And at the same time, you've got financial markets, both the traditional ones and digital assets, just hanging on every bit of inflation data.
Yeah.
It could really define monetary policy for the next year.
And for El Salvador specifically, the domestic economic numbers, particularly on debt, they demand some really intensive analysis right now.
They absolutely do.
So our mission in this deep dive is to basically act as your expert guides. We're going to navigate this whole complex intersection. We're not just reporting the headlines.
No.
We want to identify the strategic takeaways, the immediate implications for you, the informed learner who really needs to understand how all these world events connect.
And how serious they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's start immediately on the international stage. Geopolitical maneuvering is really taking center stage. So let's unpack this. It's a very high level, and as we said, a very visible diplomatic exchange happening with the United States and Russia. We're seeing reports that detail the public movements of the United States envoy, Steve Witkoff, and also Jared Kushner, right in the heart of Moscow.
And they're not alone. They're being accompanied by Kirill Dmitriev,
the CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund.
Exactly. So this was not some secret meeting happening in a quiet room.
Absolutely not. This was diplomatic choreography. It was designed for public consumption. We're seeing them make these very public appearances.
Right. Visiting huge cultural landmarks, the Bolshoi Theater, walking through Red Square.
And the whole context here is that Steve Witkoff has a major high-stakes meeting scheduled with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
That's the end game. This is all the preamble.
That accompaniment by Kirill Dmitriev is so fascinating. I mean, having the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund involved in the public pregame, that signals a pretty specific agenda, right?
Oh, it signals intent and it signals scope. When you have envoys of this caliber, and Kushner especially, with his connections engaging so openly with someone like Dmitriev, it suggests the talks aren't just about, soft diplomacy or rhetoric.
It's about money.
It's about money. They're telegraphing that this meeting with President Putin has a strong potential for some really substantive economic or financial outcomes.
So things like investment, maybe sanctions relief?
Could be, or perhaps some kind of structured dialogue on areas of mutual financial interest. The visibility of it all, that ensures that global audiences and, domestic hardliners on both sides, they know this engagement is serious and it's intentional before the real discussions even begin.
It's setting the stage.
Yeah.
A projection of confidence.
Precisely. It's a very deliberate show of access.
Okay, so let's pivot from that kind of choreographed dance to a much hotter flashpoint. Let's talk about Venezuela, because we have some truly stunning details emerging about a direct negotiation, a phone call between Donald Trump and Nicolás Maduro. This really defines the crisis in sharp, non-theoretical terms.
It does. The reports, and they seem to be coming from confidential sources, they reveal that Maduro presented this comprehensive, I'd even call it a maximalist list of demands for his exit.
This wasn't a tentative offer then?
No, this was a clear set of conditions. This is what it will take for my regime to end.
So what was specifically on that list? Because from what I'm reading, these weren't just, guarantee my personal safety. They implicated international law, the entire structure of the Venezuelan state.
That is the crucial distinction. Maduro's demands were layered. So at the very base level, yes, he wanted complete legal amnesty for himself and his entire family. A clean slate for life.
Okay.
Then you move up a level. He demanded the withdrawal of sanctions targeting roughly 100 high-ranking government officials.
And then the big one,
And then the really extraordinary condition was his insistence that the investigation against him before the International Criminal Court, the ICC, be immediately filed away.
Let's just pause on that ICC demand for a second. Why is that the non-negotiable, the existential issue for him?
Because that request goes so far beyond standard political asylum or safe passage, the ICC, you have to remember, investigates individuals for the gravest possible crimes. We're talking genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes.
So for the United States to agree to that?
It would mean completely undercutting its own global stance on accountability, on anti-corruption. Filing that away grants him essentially global and permanent legal immunity. It was a condition that Maduro likely knew would be rejected, but it gave him maximum leverage.
And on top of his own personal and legal safety, he was trying to control the transition of power itself.
Correct. His exit strategy included a succession plan. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez would assume the interim presidency pending new elections.
So he's trying to guarantee continuity for his whole political apparatus, even if he personally steps aside.
That was the attempt, yes.
So given the scope of these demands, especially that ICC one, how did Donald Trump respond?
The response was definitive, a rejection of the vast majority of those requests. Donald Trump shifted immediately from any kind of negotiation into delivering an ultimatum.
A hard deadline.
A very firm deadline. November 28th, Maduro and his family were given until that date to leave under safe conduct. But it was a very narrowly defined grace period. It did not include the broader amnesty, and it certainly did not include the ICC concession.
And we know what happened when that deadline came and went.
Non-compliance. And that triggered an immediate and very dramatic consequence.
The airspace.
Donald Trump ordered the total closure of Venezuelan airspace. Now, this is a very physical, non-theoretical projection of power. It's a way of enforcing the ultimatum globally.
And Maduro's response after that?
Reports indicate that he subsequently tried to request further communication, but the public information suggests that door was closed after the deadline expired. And we should also note, this crisis is clearly still a top priority. Donald Trump met with the National Security Council about Venezuela just a day later, on December 1st.
Of course, this kind of firm, unilateral action by the United States is going to spark some regional pushback.
Immediately.
And we're seeing President Gustavo Petro of Colombia taking a very firm stance, defining his nation's policy as a clear counterpoint to this.
Gustavo Petro's announcement about restoring flights to and from Venezuela, it's more than just an infrastructure decision, It's a political statement.
How so?
He deliberately framed it that way. He called the resumption of air service a necessary diplomatic action to counteract what he called the threats and aggressions from the United States administration.
So he wasn't just normalizing relations. He was basically inviting the world to challenge the U.S. stance.
Exactly. He used some very strong language on social media. He called on the world to follow Colombia's lead, and he emphasized that the focus has to be on diplomatic solutions, not what he termed barbarism.
He's actively trying to forge a different path.
A regional approach that prioritizes dialogue and de-escalation over these unilateral economic and travel restrictions.
But the most direct challenge was aimed right at that airspace closure ordered by Donald Trump.
That's where he brought in the legal and sovereignty argument. Gustavo Petro stated very firmly that the United States has no right to close Venezuelan airspace to the world.
He made a distinction.
A crucial one. He clarified that, sure, they can prevent their own airlines from flying there, but they cannot legally block other international carriers. This is a huge distinction, and it challenges the scope of U.S. jurisdiction. It just shows a really clear split in regional foreign policy on how to handle the Maduro regime.
This brings us to neighboring Central America, specifically Honduras, which, as our sources are showing, is an absolute geopolitical hotspot right now.
It is. We really have to understand the high stakes of the political situation there.
So frame that for us. Why is Honduras so critical?
Well, Honduras is strategically vital in Central America. It's often viewed as a key sphere of United States influence. The outcome of their elections is always, and I mean always, intensely scrutinized in Washington. It really determines regional stability and alignment.
And that inherent importance is why the U.S. is willing to exert such palpable influence.
Exactly. And that influence was just exercised in the most dramatic way possible.
A presidential pardon. An indulto.
For a convicted drug trafficker, former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernández right in the middle of all this political tension.
It's an extraordinary move. The political calculus behind that must be immense.
It's huge. I mean, Juan Hernandez, or JOH, he'd been sentenced to 45 years in a Virginia prison for drug trafficking. His release, which was secured through an official pardon from Donald Trump, happened just this past Monday.
So what does that signal?
It signals that in the hierarchy of U.S. foreign policy priorities, stabilizing a preferred political outcome in Honduras right now outweighed the moral and legal consistency of keeping a major convicted drug trafficker in prison.
And what is that preferred political outcome?
The country is right in the middle of an extremely tight electoral battle. The preliminary results are showing a technical tie.
Between who?
Between the conservative candidate Nasria Sfura, who is reportedly backed by Donald Trump, and the centrist candidate Salvador Nasrallah. The tension is palpable.
So the pardon of JOH, released just as votes are being tallied. It's a signal.
It's a powerful endorsement signal. It's widely seen as being aimed at benefiting the conservative candidate.
So the pardon becomes a diplomatic tool where you sacrifice legal consistency for immediate geopolitical influence in a high-stakes regional election.
Precisely. It allows the conservative faction to rally support. It suggests that a victory for Nasria Sfura ensures continued high-level backing from Washington, even if that backing comes with strings attached to a, let's say, controversial figure like JOH.
The geopolitical stakes here are immense. They go far beyond the borders of Honduras.
Far beyond.
Okay, let's widen the lens now and jump across the Pacific, because these regional pressures are being mirrored by global flashpoints. The tensions between China and Japan over the disputed Senkaku Islands, or Diaoyu, as they're known in China, it shows the same kind of aggressive posturing we're seeing in the Caribbean. We have conflicting reports about a maritime confrontation.
And this specific incident involved both nations' coast guards and a civilian Japanese fishing boat, which immediately just raises the temperature.
And in these situations, with disputed territory, the narratives are always going to be diametrically opposed.
Always.
So what was China's official account of what happened?
The Chinese Coast Guard stated that the Japanese fishing vessel illegally entered what they consider the Diaoyu waters. They're asserting their territorial claim. They say they intercepted and then expelled the vessel, all according to their maritime laws.
Okay, and the Japanese side, how did they interpret the events?
The Japanese Coast Guard provided a defensive counter-narrative. They claim that they intercepted and expelled 2 Chinese vessels that were aggressively approaching their fishing boat.
So for Japan, it was an act of protection.
Protecting a national vessel from a foreign intrusion, the common denominator here is just the increased willingness on both sides to engage in this kinetic maneuvering backed by state vessels.
And this incident, it has to be viewed in the context of some recent, very aggressive statements that have come out of Tokyo regarding the ultimate Asia-Pacific flashpoint, Taiwan.
It absolutely must. This confrontation at sea took place not long after the Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi made a really striking assertion back in November.
What did she say?
She stated that a Chinese attack on democratically governed Taiwan could trigger a military response from Tokyo. That links this localized maritime dispute to the largest military question in the entire region.
So, just to recap, we have the United States applying extreme pressure in the America's ultimatums in Venezuela, political pardons in Honduras, and at the same time, major powers in the Pacific are raising the stakes to the level of potential military intervention. What's the fundamental takeaway from all this simultaneous global volatility?
I think the fundamental takeaway is that global stability right now is not being defined by consensus. It's being defined by the projection of unilateral power.
Every major power is doing it.
Every single one. The United States, China, Russia, they're all actively testing boundaries and asserting dominance, whether that's through financial instruments, military threats, or executive actions like pardons.
So for you, the listener, what's the key?
The key is recognizing that these flashpoints are all interconnected. Instability in one region draws resources and attention, which can then, in turn, embolden actors in another. The margin for diplomatic error has become, well, razor thin, globally.
That perfectly sets the stage for our economic segment. We need to look at how these global forces are translating into market behavior, and, crucially, how El Salvador is navigating this environment with its own unique set of fiscal challenges.
It does. But before we move into that market analysis, let's just take a moment to discuss how our listeners can ensure we continue to provide this kind of in-depth, unbiased analysis.
We truly appreciate you joining us for these deep dives. This type of detailed analysis, linking global geopolitics with domestic finance, it requires extensive resources, and we really do rely heavily on the support of this engaged audience.
We want to emphasize and just remind you that there are several simple but essential ways you can collaborate and help sustain the production of this deep dive.
If you find significant value in this conversation, please consider making a contribution or donation via PayPal. You will find the necessary link in the content description right below this audio.
And for those of you who utilize decentralized financial tools, we also accept support via a Bitcoin QR code, which is also readily available in the content description.
Don't forget to check out our online store too. It's accessible through the links in the content description. There you'll find paid content that might be useful for you, along with more ways to collaborate and show your support for this deep dive.
Every share, every follow, every contribution really does make a tangible difference. Thank you for helping us keep these important conversations going.
Now, let's shift gears completely. Let's move into the financial deep dive, analyzing global markets, the volatile pulse of Bitcoin, and the critical fiscal health of El Salvador.
Okay, starting with the macroeconomic environment, we are seeing a generalized market repunte, a recovery. Wall Street, global indices, they're all moving firmly back into positive territory, recovering from some recent jitters.
That seems almost contradictory to the image of geopolitical chaos we just painted. What specific factors are overriding that instability and fueling this optimism among investors?
The primary driving force here is a renewed confidence, and it's tied to inflation. Investors are positively assimilating the recent economic data.
Which suggests?
It suggests that the rigorous monetary policies that have been enacted over the last few quarters are finally starting to yield some results. And crucially, statements from the Federal Reserve are being interpreted very favorably,
leading the market to believe inflation might actually be coming under control?
That's the hope. So the narrative is shifting from how high will interest rates go to when might rates stabilize or even drop.
Right.
And that expectation of a more favorable monetary policy, one that potentially avoids more aggressive rate hikes, it decreases the cost of capital, and it raises future profitability projections for companies.
Their hope is contagious.
It's very contagious. It's driving a generalized risk-on sentiment and contributing to lower volatility across most major exchanges. And that's the tide that's currently lifting all boats, including digital assets.
Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin. It's really the asset that best reflects this volatile mix of risk appetite and uncertainty. Where does it stand right now?
Bitcoin is currently trading strongly, right around $90,935 US. This is a significant recovery, a big repunte, especially when you consider that it had dipped below that critical $87,000 mark earlier today on December 2nd.
And we need to contextualize this movement, right? This volatility is still part of the cycle following that massive run-up last month.
Precisely. We are operating within a wider correction phase. It's all following that significant all-time high of $126,198 that was achieved in November. The current move is a test of resilience.
So the bounce back from 87,000 shows buyers are stepping in.
They're stepping in quickly, yes, but the crucial test of momentum is still ahead of us.
Let's dive deep into that technical landscape then. I know analysts are watching specific levels that are going to define whether this is a genuine reversal or, just a dead cat bounce.
Right.
What are the key thresholds?
All right, so we need to analyze three levels that the institutions are watching. First, the $88,000 level. That is the absolute foundation for short-term stability.
If it holds that, we're okay.
Holding that confirms that the underlying support structure is still intact. Second, and this is really the line in the sand for the bulls, is sustained consolidation above $91,000.
Why is $91,000 such a critical barrier right now?
Well, that level often corresponds with institutional accumulation zones and some psychological resistance that was established during the previous uptrend, but more technically breaching and then consolidating above 91,000.
Meaning staying there for a few days.
Staying there for multiple trading sessions, yes. That is the necessary threshold to convincingly invalidate any lingering short-term bearish theses. That's what would generate the end-of-year momentum that analysts are projecting.
And if the market fails, if it can't break and hold 91K?
If it fails, the risk profile shifts dramatically. The door remains wide open for a swift retreat. we would likely see a pretty rapid move down toward the next major psychological support level, which is pinned right around $85,000.
So institutional flow managers are watching 91,000 very, very close.
Intensely, to decide whether to deploy fresh capital or just take profits off the table.
It's so clear that crypto is now tightly correlated with traditional risk assets.
Yeah.
It's benefiting from the same global impulse. But you mentioned a unique uncertainty factor, something related to technology.
Yes. While the general market feels optimistic, there is this persistent uncertainty in the tech sector, which is highly influential on crypto valuations.
What's driving that?
It's partly driven by concerns over the intense computing power and infrastructure needs of these massive new AI models, specifically the DeepSeek AI model.
So the market is worried about how the rapid scaling of AI will impact valuations of, say, chip manufacturers and energy providers.
Exactly, and that underlying pressure on tech stocks, it acts as a bit of a headwind against what is an otherwise bullish environment for digital assets.
Okay, so let's bring this analysis home to El Salvador. Let's start with the headline figure that defines its economic outlook: public debt. And the numbers are substantial, and they're growing.
The trajectory is concerning. El Salvador's total public debt reached $33,805 million as of October.
And how does that compare to the last month or last year?
Well, it represents an increase of $226 million from the previous month alone, and it's a massive 8.2% higher than the figure that was reported at the same time last year.
And the most important metric is always the debt burden relative to the size of the entire economy.
That's where the warning sirens really sound the loudest. The debt of the non-financial public sector now represents 89.2% of the GDP.
Almost 90%.
Almost 90%. And for context, while there's no single safe level everyone agrees on, when debt approaches that 90% of GDP mark, it raises fundamental questions about fiscal sustainability.
What kind of questions?
While it often leads to higher borrowing costs, it reduces the government's ability to fund essential services, and it crowds out private investment. Managing a debt load that is almost equivalent to the value of everything the country produces in a year, that is a tremendous fiscal challenge.
And while the Ministry of Finance is tackling this huge macro problem, ordinary Salvadorans are feeling the pressure on the micro level. We have concrete data on the rising cost of living.
We do. The figures for 2025 confirm that inflation is deeply impacting household budgets. We are tracking a distinct and problematic increase in the cost of both the basic urban and the basic rural food baskets.
This isn't abstract. This is about fundamental living expenses.
Exactly.
So which specific items saw the sharpest increases in October?
The reports highlight the staple items, the non-discretionary goods that directly affect daily caloric intake and budget stability. We're talking about tortillas, meat, and tomatoes. They all registered price increases in October.
And these increases disproportionately impact lower-income families.
Absolutely. Those are the families who allocate a much larger percentage of their earnings toward basic food needs.
This combination of high debt and rising living costs, it puts an intense spotlight on the government's necessary coordination with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF.
It does.
So what's the current status of those negotiations and agreement revisions?
The government confirms that they are actively coordinating with the IMF for the upcoming revisions of the overall agreement. However, the critical bottleneck remains, and it's centered on the planned pension reform.
And the centerpiece of that reform, the one thing the IMF needs to see assurance on, is the actuarial study.
Exactly. The Ministry of Finance is still refining that actuarial study. And this study isn't just academic. It has to rigorously demonstrate that the proposed pension reform is financially sound and solvent, often projected 50 to 75 years into the future.
The IMF needs that certainty.
They need it to ensure that the reform doesn't just shuffle debt around now, but that it actually secures long-term fiscal health. Until that study is approved and accepted as sustainable, progress toward a finalized IMF agreement is going to remain stalled.
Now, amidst all these pressures, massive debt, rising food costs, IMF friction, there's one consistent, positive signal demonstrating some resilience in the Salvadoran economy.
That is the inflow of family remittances. Remittances remain the economic lifeline. They're showing a healthy positive trend with an 18.2% rise up to October.
And that constant influx of foreign currency from Salvadorans working abroad provides a critical cushion.
It does. It mitigates some of the fiscal instability, and it helps fund those basic household needs that are increasing in price. But, and this is important, it's a necessary input, not a structural fix for the debt ratio itself.
Okay, let's shift our focus entirely now to domestic affairs. Let's look at security, governance, and the rule of law within El Salvador. The judicial system continues to impose some very severe sentences.
It does. It reflects a clear, zero-tolerance approach to certain high-profile crimes. The courts have been very busy processing major cases.
What are some of the notable ones?
Well, we've seen several condemnations that serve as strong deterrents. In Antigua, Cuscatlán, a man was condemned for murder and attempted suicide, and he received a very lengthy sentence of 50 years.
That's a strong message.
It is. It speaks to the seriousness with which the courts are handling violent crime. And furthermore, there was the successful conviction of gang members who were involved in the murder of an inmate inside the highly secure Zacatecoluca penal facility.
So that shows the system is pursuing accountability even for crimes committed within the prison system itself.
That's right. And law enforcement, of course, remains focused on ongoing gang eradication efforts.
Still a high priority area.
The highest. The latest actions confirmed the capture of 3 men and 3 women who are accused of being active members of the MS-13 gang. It just underscores the continuous operational pressure being maintained against these criminal structures.
Let's move now to public administration and financial oversight. We have some significant developments regarding scrutiny over state funds and state enterprise management. First, the accountability body, the Court of Accounts.
Yes, there has been a formal and very critical request made to the Court of Accounts, the Corte de Cuentas, which is the supreme auditing body in the country.
And what's the request?
The request is to audit the savings of the workers that are managed by the ISSS, the Social Security Institute. This is a crucial area for transparency. These are the retirement and welfare funds of state workers, and any mismanagement or lack of clarity can cause widespread public concern.
We also have reports of administrative and financial crises in some key state entities.
We have 2 specific and separate issues here. On the environmental and infrastructure front, the mighty sanitary landfill has been immobilized.
By whose order?
By order of the Fiscalia, the prosecutor's office. An immobilization order like that suggests a very serious legal, environmental, or administrative violation that requires the immediate halt of operations.
And the second issue?
Separately, the Sociedad de Mercados, which manages key market infrastructure, has accumulated significant financial losses totaling $5.2 million. That raises some serious governance questions about the efficiency of these state-owned enterprises.
And we can't ignore the political controversy regarding legislative conduct, specifically involving outgoing deputies.
No. Reports have surfaced that deputies from the Nuevas Ideas Party advanced their salary before their departure from the Central American Parliament, which is known as Parlicen.
And while those procedures can sometimes fall into bureaucratic gray areas,
advancing salaries right ahead of a departure from office, it immediately draws intense scrutiny regarding the responsible and ethical use of public funds, particularly funds that are dedicated to international parliamentary representation.
Finally, we're seeing a shift in public infrastructure management.
Yes. The ISTU, the Salvadoran Tourism Institute, will now take over the administration of the Punta Chiquirin Pier. This consolidation suggests a centralized effort to improve tourism infrastructure and management under a single entity.
Our final segment of domestic affairs has to focus on migration, which is, of course, inextricably linked to United States policy. We have some solid figures on returns for 2025.
We do. Up to September 2025, the migration authorities reported that 9,431 Salvadorans had been returned or deported from the United States. And this figure just underscores the continuous and high volume of return migration that the country has to manage.
And at the same time, U.S. government is facing direct judicial action about how some of those deportations were authorized. Specifically, flights related to the CECOT mega prison facility.
That legal scrutiny is escalating. Judge Boasberg has issued a specific order that requires the United States government to turn over statements from all the individuals who were involved in authorizing deportation flights directed toward or near the CECOT prison.
So what does that judicial action highlight?
It highlights the mounting legal and political pressure on the U.S. administration to explain its oversight and authorization process, especially when it's linking its deportation policy to highly controversial Salvadoran penal institutions.
And the broader asylum landscape for Salvadorans has shifted dramatically following executive action.
It's a major policy decision. The United States government has halted decisions on all existing asylum petitions. This move follows a direct executive order from Donald Trump aimed at curbing migration flows.
And for thousands of people seeking protection.
For them, this abrupt halt creates immediate uncertainty, and it places them in a prolonged state of legal limbo while this policy is implemented and potentially challenged in court.
This has been a monumental exploration. From diplomatic showdowns in Moscow to unprecedented ultimatums in Caracas, volatile markets, and the fundamental fiscal challenges facing El Salvador. We need to wrap all of these threads up for our listener.
It's crucial to synthesize these points. The global picture is one of simultaneous pressures, and all of them have direct economic and political consequences for Central America.
It's time to consolidate these massive data points into our 60-second summary. Let's focus on the three most impactful conclusions from today's deep dive.
Okay, conclusion number 1, diplomatic leverage and consequences. The negotiation crisis with Venezuela, it reached a definitive breaking point.
Right, after Donald Trump rejected Nicolás Maduro's sweeping demands.
Demands which included legal amnesty for over 100 officials and dropping the investigation before the International Criminal Court. That rejection was immediately followed by the decisive unilateral closure of Venezuelan airspace.
A move that drew strong regional condemnation from leaders like Colombia's Gustavo Petro, who challenged the United States' legal jurisdiction.
Conclusion number 2, market momentum and key volatility. Global markets are experiencing a risk-on rally. It's driven by this renewed optimism that inflationary pressures are easing, and that's providing a lift to digital assets.
And this momentum pushed Bitcoin back above the $90,000 threshold.
It did. But the critical technical takeaway is that sustained consolidation above the $91,000 resistance level is absolutely necessary to invalidate any short-term bearish predictions and prevent a potential retreat toward that $85,000 psychological support.
In conclusion number 3, El Salvador's fiscal pressure and IMF focus. Despite the strong performance of family remittances, which were up 18.2% year-to-date.
El Salvador's public debt continues its sharp ascent. It's now totaling $33.8 billion, and it's nearing a highly problematic 90% of GDP.
This immense fiscal challenge places intense scrutiny on the government's coordination with the IMF.
And specifically on the successful completion and acceptance of that actuarial study, it's necessary to ensure the long-term solvency and sustainability of the planned pension reform.
So we'll leave you with this final provocative thought. Given the rapidly evolving and often unilateral nature of United States influence, which we've seen with the ultimatum in Venezuela, the controversial presidential pardon in Honduras during a tight election, and the abrupt halt of asylum decisions, how might this fluid diplomatic landscape fundamentally reshape economic stability and political alignment across Central America in the coming 6 months?
It's a question that demands continuous attention as these policies have tangible and lasting consequences on the ground.
We want to thank you again for being part of this detailed exploration. Remember, your engagement is what makes these conversations possible. Please check the content description for ways to support the show with economic contributions. You can donate via PayPal or use the Bitcoin QR code. Review all the links you'll find in the description to explore our online store for exclusive content. Share this deep dive with others who might find it useful, and follow us